There's an old Wendy's commercial that you may remember. There's a line of people at the counter of this fast food restaurant, and the man at the front gets his bag of whatever, and he turns to go back and sit down and eat. And the guy behind him steps up and says to the server, "Excuse me, what was that? What did he get?" And the guy says, "Chicken." And the guy at the counter says, "Yeah, what part of the chicken?" And there's some muttering amongst other servers behind the head server, and he says, "Well, parts." What they do is they take all kind of parts of the chicken and chop them up and smush them together in one big chunk, so parts is parts. And then the voice in the commercial goes on to say, "Wendy's doesn't do chicken that way." It reminded me of a cartoon about the same time. There's a chicken sitting on an exam table in a doctor's office. And the doctor comes in with the folder and says, "I'm sorry, I have some bad news. There's a problem with your nuggets." Which I find endlessly amusing. I don't know what that says about me. Now, chickens don't have nuggets, as far as we know, unless there's a new kind of chicken that's been created with nuggets. And parts is not parts. Parts are different and distinguishable. A leg is not an arm, and a patella is not a pituitary, and a lung is not a liver. Different parts are different, and they function differently. We play different parts as well. So, in the scripture today, Jesus is teaching, and he taught them many things in parables, it says, and he says, "Listen." In some versions, it says, "Behold." Now, we've kind of lost something when we don't have "behold" in there, because that kind of makes you sit up and take notice. Listen, we hear that all the time. Listen, listen up, listen. Listen. And of course you did, right? You listened intently, as you're doing right now. I'm sure of it, no doubt. What part in the story grabbed you? What part did you find yourself sliding into? Now, this is a central parable. We're told this parable appears in not only Matthew, but Mark and Luke, and also the Gospel of Thomas. So it's an important one, and we figure since it shows up so much that Jesus actually said this. Now, John goes off on his own with his own gospel, as he almost always does. But this parable, we're told Jesus is sitting in a boat on the Sea of Galilee. And one of the commentators said this is fine political drama, because in that part of the world that Jesus is from, a lot of people around there make their living from fishing. He's sitting in a fishing boat on the sea. And these fisher folk at this time are under the heavy thumb of Rome. The fees and licenses and taxes they have to pay make it almost impossible to make a living fishing. They have hardly anything left after they've dished out. So the system, as it is, doesn't work for them. That's the background, the context. So Jesus comes in and says, there's another system coming. We call it the kingdom. It's on the way. It's right here. And let me tell you about it. It works like this. A woman goes out to sow some seed in the field. And she has this big bag of seed, and she just flings it everywhere. She's just crazy, throwing seed all over the place. You get the picture? This is just scattering it all over. And some of it finds soil and takes off and grows and produces wonderfully. Some of it produces 100 times itself, and some of it 60 times itself, and some 30 times itself. But a lot of it just doesn't grab anywhere. It doesn't take hold. The soil is not good. It's the birds eat it up, and of course the birds have to eat. The fact that the birds eat it doesn't mean it's the end of the life for the seed. That may be deposited somewhere else, not that it will be harvestable there, and it may be deposited on the windshield of your car, who knows, but a lot of the seed does nothing. It produces nothing. One of the things the parable is saying is that from a very little bit, a lot of good can come. Now, as you heard the parable, did you hear Jesus chastising the sower? That, you need to be more careful and judicious with the seed. You need to, make sure it stays in the boundaries of the field, because throwing it all over the place is just reckless and it makes no sense. Does Jesus say that? No. There's no judgment on the sower, and it makes you wonder, who's he talking about here? And what does that say? Does he say, that bad soil needs to shape up and be like the good soil, so it should take some courses or something to improve its receptivity and its depth, and it should be more productive. It should be like that other soil. Does he say that? No. This is not self-improvement, self-help stuff. This is the way it is. This is the way it is. If you have ears to hear, pay attention, listen, take it in. Do you understand what I'm saying? He says. And the folks in the crowd are looking around and say, oh yeah, sure, I understand that. Oh yeah, I got that for sure. I know exactly what he's talking about. Nobody knows exactly what he's talking about. So a little while later, he's back inside with his closest followers, and he gives them the inside scoop. And I read that to you, where everything corresponds to something, and it all ties together, it all makes sense, and it's all this neat little package, and so there's no mystery left. You think he really does that? I know it's heresy, but I don't think he does that. And in our Bible study on Tuesday, Art, and we won't give his last name, but you all know who he is, he said, that doesn't sound like Jesus to me. And I agree. It sounds like Matthew or a later editor who's spinning Jesus for his or her own purposes, which is what I do every Sunday too. Guilty. We all do it. We're all spinning stuff all the time, and Jesus gets spun a lot. But hopefully we do it in a way that's in keeping with his Spirit. I don't think Jesus explains those stories. I think Jesus likes to make his listeners' heads spin a little bit. I think that action, that spinning action, like in a washing machine, the centrifugal force is good. It spins out some junk that needs to go. So there's room for something new. And it creates an agitation. And that's okay too. He likes to stir things up. He likes to trouble the minds of his listeners, their hearts. Good trouble. Good trouble. Like John Lewis, when his mother said, well, don't go and get into trouble. He said, I can't promise I won't get into trouble. I'm going to get into good trouble, though. And there's a documentary about John Lewis called Good Trouble that's out right now, I do believe. So my takeaway is, and has been for a long time, that in terms of parables and other things that Jesus says, we're not supposed to get it. It's supposed to get us. And it's supposed to bother us. And it's supposed to haunt us. It's supposed to be, Jerry, it's supposed to be like one of those songs that gets in your head. And it just keeps going. And you wonder what it's doing in there. And pretty soon you're listening to words and you're picking out music. And it's supposed to stay there and do its work. It's supposed to get us. So did it get you today? Did the story get you? Is it getting you now? How so? What's it doing in you? And maybe just as importantly, what are you doing with it? What do we do with it? I mean, your part in the story may be this or that. What about the parts that you assign to others? So who are those people that you know that are the rocky, shallow soil out of which nothing grows? We all know someone, right? Or we know people who maybe right now are in a rocky time and space in their life, or a time where their resources aren't very deep and they're struggling. And there's a lot of people like that. Who are the people that you know of that are being choked by the circumstances in their life that they can't control? And George Floyd is the emblem of that. Now, the image of that, who's kneeling on them? What are the things that are keeping them down, choking the life out of them? And who are those those good-for-nothing, unproductive people that do not do hardly any work at all, that don't apply themselves, and so they don't deserve anything, but they expect things? Who are they, besides your and my beloved and blessed siblings? Who are those people that we put in that category? And when we realize that we do that, as I do, well, then the question is, who's spinning the story? Who's spinning Jesus? And is Jesus in there anymore, or have we spun him out altogether? Because that happens a lot. So Sunday evening, I am on my way home. I had a get-together with a friend, a colleague, for conversation and refreshment and social distancing, masks, the whole thing. We were doing that. And I'm coming back. It's 7:30 on Sunday evening, and this is in Fridley, so I drive through North Minneapolis to get back home. And I'm near Victory Memorial Drive coming through North Minneapolis, and traffic is really light. And up ahead, at a corner, there's this guy standing there waiting to cross the street. And he's waiting for me to go by. And because there's nobody coming behind me, I just stop and motion for him to cross, which he does. Now, the guy's wearing camouflage shorts, a tank top, tennis shoes, a baseball cap, and he's black. Okay, got the picture? He is about my size. He's not as powerfully built as I am, but he's about... Okay, now, we try. We're about the same size, and he's crossing in front of me. And then, rather than continuing on, he loops around and comes toward me. And he's about 6-7 feet from my window, and it's clear he wants to talk to me, which is not what I was looking for. So I roll down the window, and he says, "I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but I am on my way down to HCMC because my daughter had a baby today. My first grandchild was born this afternoon, and I am so excited. I'm so happy to be a grandpa, and I'm on my way down there to see them, but I don't have enough gas in my car, and I don't have enough money to buy gas. Now, my car is back up at the Speedway station up here, and the police are up there too, and they're watching everybody coming and going so that nobody puts gas in their car and drives off without paying for it. I am not a thief. Not all black guys are bad," he said, which just made my heart sink. He said, "I need about $12 to get enough gas to get down there and back home and to work in the morning. That's all I need, and I don't have it, and I hate to beg, but I don't know what else to do. Can you help me out?" I said, "I am sorry. I don't have $12. Truth is, I have $3 in my wallet. The same $3 I've had in my wallet for about the past month, because I don't go hardly anywhere, and if I go somewhere, I don't use cash, I use a card. So I've had this $3 is just about pressed into $1 now. It's been in my wallet for so long. That's what I have in my wallet. And I'm honest, I don't have $12. And his shoulders kind of slump. He said, "Okay, thanks anyway." And he starts to walk away. And then I remember, before I left the house, I was out to the car earlier in the afternoon when I was leaving. I went back in the house, and I took a $20 bill out of the drawer, and I put it in my wallet. I've not put money in my wallet for a month. I've not spent money. But for some reason, I thought, I won't need it, but I want to have it there. I need it. I need to have it in my wallet. So I put it in my wallet, and I remember that. And as he's walking away, I said, hey, I don't have $12, but I have this. And I hold the 20 out. He literally jumps off the ground. And he throws his arms up, fists up. He is exuberant. It's like he just hit the home run to win the World Series. He is so excited. And he comes over and he takes it. He says, thank you, man. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. And I'm just kind of, I said, well, God bless you. And he said, he just did. He just did. And he walks around the car and back to the side of the street that he was on. And he starts to trot up the street towards where he pointed that his car was. And I call out the window. I said, hey, what's your name? He says, Rick. I said, Rick, I'm Jeff. It's good to meet you. Maybe we'll meet each other again sometime. He said, yeah. If not here, then up there. And he gives me this big grin, and off he goes. Just light in heart. Jesus taught them many things in parables. He said, listen, behold, pay attention. There's this person that went out to sow seed. And when she went out, she was just flinging seed all over the place. Didn't care, it seemed, just everywhere. So it's everywhere. It's already everywhere. And a lot of it didn't do anything. Hasn't caught, hasn't taken hold, doesn't. Just got eaten up by the birds. But some of it grew and produced amazingly. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you hear me? Do you know what I'm saying? And I think, yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I get it. And a lot of times I don't. And it slips away. So, was the $20, was that the seed? Or was the request? Am I the soil, or is Rick the soil? Who's doing the flinging? Is anything being produced out of this? Has anything come of it? Yeah. No. Maybe. Who knows? What I know is I got far more than $20 worth of joy and hope out of that exchange. And I won't forget that for a long time, if ever. And it seemed like something was planted in me as a result of it. And now, maybe in you. Could be. Amen.